Welcome to Freethought Matters. I'm Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker. We're co-presidents of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which produces this show. And we're standing in the lobby of the Freedom from Religion Foundation by this new sculpture of former Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
This beautiful bust was created for us by world-renowned sculptor Zenos Frudakis. On our show today, we're going to visit him in his studio.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation, which produces Freethought Matters, is the nation's largest association of free thinkers. That's atheists, agnostics, and other non-believers. We invite you to join us in our vital work to keep our secular government free from religious influence. Become a member at FFRF.org or ask for a complimentary copy of our newspaper, Freethought Today. Freedom depends on freethinkers. Watch prior episodes of Freethought Matters on FFRF's YouTube channel.
Welcome to Freethought Matters. I'm Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker. Zenos Frudakis is an internationally renowned sculptor and artist whose more than 100 works have been displayed throughout the United States, Europe, Australia, Japan, South Africa, and other countries around the world. His sculpture, Freedom, has been listed in the top 10 public art by The Independent.
Zenos, whose father was born on Crete, was raised in a Greek Orthodox family which boasts a number of other artistic individuals. He is now non-religious. Zenos lives in a quiet suburb outside of Philadelphia, where he works on his art in a historic carriage house in his backyard.
Please come into my studio. Laurie, welcome.
Thank you.
Dan.
Wow, look at all this.
This is nearly a lifetime of work. It's an old style studio. I prefer it to the sort of newer warehouse look. And especially because the work I do refers more to work from the early Greek work right up through the present. Even maybe some of the Venus of Willendorf and some of the caveman work. So I have more in common with that.
We were watching you during the pandemic create this beautiful ode to Ruth Bader Ginsburg after she died.
Yes.
And there you were creating this fantastic bust of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And you were telling us, I'm making this from clay and it's not going to last.
Yes.
And we said that you have to make that permanent, and you ended up gifting it. Yes. To us at the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
She found a great home with you.
Yes, and it's in the lobby. It greets everybody.
Well,
who
you
comes
and your
by.
mother did so much for women's rights. She was a first-rate person. She deserved a really good sculpture of herself.
Well, it's
for other people. I mean, she's dead, but
yes, she lives on in your art, and she inspires us. Her presence.
So. Yeah,
well, it does.
And I hope in some small way this can, in your lobby, people come in and they can be inspired by it.
But somebody could ask you, from the moment you first got the idea or the concept of doing, how long does it take from that point on?
Well, for the Freedom sculpture, the piece that I'm best known for, I sat down, I thought, I had a lot of commissions, or I had several commissions, and they were to do sculpt businessmen, or they weren't of my choosing, although I tried to get as much as I could of myself in them. So I thought, I'm going to sit down and come up with a philosophical concept that I wanted to do a sculpture of. And I looked at different ideas, peace and love and freedom. And I thought freedom is everybody wants to be free of something, of somebody, something, political system, an addiction, their parents.
But they want to be free from religion?
You're free from religion,
or
yes.
Slavery.
Free from religion, very good. And that was part of it for me too. So I made a piece that if people drive by, they would see a very large motion of getting free, struggling to break free, because freedom is a struggle, I think, for most people, and I wanted to show that struggle. There it is, my statement on freedom. So this is my freedom sculpture, and it's about the universal desire for freedom, freedom from, on a personal level, from large geopolitical events and governments, and freedom from religion. Anything that locks you in and binds you. This shows the struggle to break free, because I thought to express freedom, and I studied how philosophy talked about freedom and poetry and song and so on, that it had to show the struggle. It couldn't be just a figure getting free like that one, but it had to start with like to show you have to have hot and cold to express what one is from the other. You need the contrast. So it's kind of the Heraclides thing of light and dark. So I wanted people to find things that kind of have that epiphany of discovering the big idea, but also finding little things. When people have to look and discover things in the sculpture, then they participate more. I wanted people to get involved in it. And you can see the armature. See, I wanted to show how it was made. It's kind of a postmodern thing. You see, I left it, but I show that I can do the figure, but I've left these rough areas so that it's more evocative. And again, people can put themselves in it. And here it actually says, "Stand here," because I want people to become part of the sculpture and to see themselves as part of it, and to feel themselves escaping and breaking out. This is me, and it's me because freedom, I'm looking in a mirror to sculpt myself, so it's backwards. The word freedom is backwards.
And then your hands?
Is my name. That's an actual cast of my hand and one of my sculpture tools. This is the clay, cast of the clay. And here's the change. See, 7 cents, 7 cents, 51 cents. So that's my birthday, 7 cent 51. Those are coins. But I wanted to give a sense of openness, and I'm free, and as I said, see, there's one nipple, one's missing. This you can still see where I put the clay, and here you can see I'm building, the deltoid, the 3 parts based on the Greek letter delta, but the ribs.
So you wanted it to still not be complete?
I didn't want it to be, no, because again, I'm not complete. There's enough of this done that shows I can do it. That can be very finished. Shows the range.
A little bit like jazz. There's a structure and there's a form there, but there's this sort of improvised.
There was some improvisation as well
going on
as I was working, and then I left it. So you can start with, and I think I did maybe a more personal thing that I wanted to be free from, and then you universalize it, because I'm not doing art therapy. I'm not just sculpting for myself, so I don't want to be that personal. I'm thinking about an audience when I sculpt. I'm thinking about how will it move other people, because I want to be influential. I want to matter. Life is short. I think this is all we have, and then it's over. I want to matter.
I think maybe the pinnacle of your humanistic viewpoint is expressed in this relief sculpture called
Knowledge is Power.
Knowledge is Power.
Yeah, the Francis Bacon quote. I don't want to just say knowledge is power, but I want to show powerful ideas and the people that express them. So I created a giant book. And again, a little bit like my freedom sculpture, I had it here for a few years, and I would just add people, take people away. And I got a chance. What I wanted to do was create what I hadn't seen anywhere else. It was a sculpture that was largely a non-theist and secular progressive sculpture. I just put in whoever I wanted, whatever quotes I wanted. There's only so much I could get in.
But they weren't all atheists, but they were saying
a lot of
natural
them,
things.
A lot of them were.
A lot of them were. And at the time I researched all of them, and I wanted to get in as many free thinkers as I could.
Yes.
The 2 large pages, and they're both about 7-foot figures. There's Darwin on one page, because I thought, who are the giants? And Einstein on the other, because of all the work he did. And he wasn't a theist. I know that sometimes people use various quotes that he makes, but it's more about Spinoza and physics for him and other nature. I think people that had interesting things to say, again, Margaret Sanger there, and Niels Bohr says here, physicist is just an atom's way of looking at itself. That's why he said he's a little bit practical. But this was the important thing. And, of course, Thomas Paine. And what does it say under Thomas Paine?
I offer nothing more than simple facts, plain arguments,
and common sense. So I wanted to get common sense in there. And again, Copernicus up there, putting the sun in the center instead of the earth, which got away from that religious idea that we had to be the center. And that, as it says, man is the measure of all things with Pythagoras. Man is the center. Here, man is the center and the measure of all things. And so there's Galileo. And he says, of course, the sun with all the planets revolving around it, which was, the big that the church didn't want to accept. But I also like to have the contradiction, so that, because in reading, not if you read just one book like many people do when they read the Bible, they don't have that sense of contradiction and having to think for themselves. And of course, the advantage of libraries for us is that because books contradict each other, you have to think for yourself and decide what's true. So I have here, I have Machiavelli saying the end justifies the means, and then under it, it says always treat people as ends, never as means, by Kant, Immanuel Kant. So it's a direct contradiction, so you have to think about it. And that's what I think knowledge does for us. And that's why, again, having Knowledge is Power by Francis Bacon here, and then having Imagination is More Important Than Knowledge by Albert Einstein. So it has, the whole idea of, I think, of education, a lot of it is that you're looking for truth, you're looking for, of course, for facts and for information, for knowledge, but you have to decide by looking at many sources what is true.
So where's Billy Graham on here?
Yeah.
Where's the Pope?
Yeah, there are plenty of sculptures of those people elsewhere. I think North Carolina did a Billy Graham for the U.S. Capitol. Which
not on this book.
No, I didn't want any religious people on this at all. The client insisted that we be on the book, and I said, no, I think a lot of myself, but I'm not going to put myself on the same page as Gandhi in there. So I have us on the side, kind of coming out of the pages. Here I'm signing the sculpture.
I would look at that display and feel that that's sort of the Enlightenment in a nutshell.
It is. I don't see myself exactly as a sculptor. I see myself as more interested in philosophy and poetry and history. So this is my wartime president, Zelensky. I wanted to show him going through this experience and feeling the pathos of the war and the toll it's taking on his people. As the time has passed, I've aged it. I've put more beard on it, and he started clean cut, and you can see, and he started with a suit, and now it's got the t-shirt. Yeah.
So he's
These are some of my tools.
Careworn.
Yes.
So what is that?
This is a little hammer, so you can get big shapes. You can kind of knock it down and see.
And what about some of the other tools?
These are all old, different woods. They have different qualities and different wire. These are all tools from dead sculptors. See, there's a sculptor's name or initial. I don't remember which one it was. I've gotten so many tools from so many old sculptors that have died. This is GL. That was Gaylor Globar. He was a pretty good sculptor.
So you've created this phenomenal sculpture that doesn't exist anywhere, that you've had to mothball, essentially, that you have been commissioned to do for a university.
Yes.
And it's amazing. I've seen photographs of it, and we see parts of it here in your studio.
Yes.
It involves DNA, it involves Darwin. Could you describe?
It's about growth.
Yeah, could you describe that?
Well, I was asked to do a university president who unfortunately died during the making of the sculpture, so the sculpture project was abandoned. But he wanted a sculpture that would cast a shadow on the university I went to, University of Pennsylvania. He wanted for Drexel. And he wanted a sculpture, he said, make whatever you want. And I thought, I'll make a gateway to to knowledge, because that's what university should be. And for a lot of kids, when they go to school, it's a portal for them. It's a transition. And so I created an arch, and I looked at a lot of arches in France, the Paris Arch de Triomphe and the Roman arches. And so I started to go back in history. I want to say everything that's been done. I thought about DNA as a growth idea, and I also like the spiral because it's almost like a stairway leading them somewhere. Spiraling up, it's like a stainless stairway. And because I wanted people to start at the base and they would climb to this sun metaphor. In art, you're looking for metaphors. And so I wanted to have a heliotropic element where the sunflower moves towards the sun, as many plants do. We move towards light, towards the knowledge, towards illumination, towards the enlightenment. Enlightenment is very important to me. So on one side of this, at the top, it looks almost like a big sunflower. There's the petals, and there's a sunflower. On the other side of the sunflower, there's the sun. So there's both elements in that one piece, depending on which side you see it from. Again, it's kind of a paradigm shift. If you look at light one way, it's particles, another way. If you see it from another direction, it's waves. But I want people to see both. And the sunflower has the the spiral that you see in the universe, and it's that whole that element of design you see with plants and growth. But anyway, so I created this piece and it got it to it's 38 feet high, I think. It's in stainless. And I didn't get to finish it. I wanted to add some puzzle pieces because knowledge, you learn piece by piece is added in knowledge, and there's more, so that people would see it on the way in. I hope that someday it'll be somewhere.
But so at the centerpiece of the sunflower, there's
a big face of Darwin.
That's right.
Yeah. And I hope whoever wants it eventually will want the Darwin as well, because I think it's important. Because I see him again, here I am again, putting him at the summit, because I think he is the sun. In a way, he's an illumination. Mm-hmm. I see much of the world that I'm in terms of evolution.
And the students could actually walk under it, correct?
Yes. Now when they walk under it, that's another story. And this is where the kind of epiphany and the unexpected for me happened. Have you ever been to the Pantheon in Rome?
Yeah.
Okay, when you're standing in the Pantheon, you're part of a big circle. And you realize when you're in the center, all of a sudden you realize, oh, there's an invisible sphere here, and I'm part of it. And because you're there, you complete that sphere. Now, I created the sculpture so that once you're under it, and it's unexpected, and you look up, all the 40-something feet of stainless, because it'll be up on a base, come together. And in a way that they couldn't, you complete that, you make that happen. It's a little bit of a quantum physics thing too. But so that you're part of it. Again, it creates you you become a participant. And there's a pleasing sense of surprise and design.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist.
When I first recorded that commercial back in 2014, being openly atheist in America was still fairly uncommon. Today, the fastest growing religious group in the country is the non-religious, especially among the young. That progress is heartening, but the religious pushback is fierce and the forces of Christian nationalism are well organized. Our progress won't continue unless we work together so that reason and our secular constitution will prevail. That's why I'm asking you to join the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics working to keep state and church separate, just like our founders intended. Please join the Freedom from Religion Foundation today. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
My name's Jarvis, and I'm an out-of-the-closet atheist. There are many reasons why I'm an atheist, but I'll start with the crudest explanation. I'm sure many of you have seen Clash of the Titans or The Immortals or 300, these blockbuster films about ancient Greek or Roman religion, which we now call mythology. But back then it wasn't mythology. It was very real for them. They genuinely believed that you had to put a coin in a person's mouth before they were buried so that they could pay for the literal ferry to the afterlife. Just as many people today believe that they should eat crackers and wine on a Sunday, or that God wants women to hide their bodies under black burqas. Every religion that has ever existed, and there are many, have all believed that they were right, that their rituals and rules and beliefs were 100% correct. And they all thought they nailed it. But where are they today? If they're not completely forgotten, they're on the silver screen, amusing us with their sword fights, animal sacrifices, and oracles. The religions of today are the entertainment of tomorrow. Everyone, I hope, is an atheist about Zeus and Apollo, Juno and Poseidon. I just added Jesus and Muhammad to that list.
So let's talk about Charles Darwin. You have this beautiful profile of him and other busts of him. Let's talk about your fascination with Charles Darwin.
Well, I think he is such a pivotal figure in history, in intellectual history, and a giant. And that's why I have in my book Sculpture is that left page on the left is the first page, and then Einstein. And I just think that he was, I almost think that history, instead of BC and AD, it should be, before Darwin, BD, and after Darwin, AD. It was just so important and significant. And so I have many sculptures of him.
Let's talk about another sculpture that you did that the Freedom from Religion Foundation was lucky enough to get involved in, which was of Clarence Darrow.
Oh, yes.
And that was quite a saga. And
yeah, you more than got involved. You made it possible. I was aware of the William James Bryan sculpture being at the Scopes trial, and somebody, I'm trying to remember his name now, had contacted me, had just been there and said, I wish there was something we could do, because there was nothing of Clarence Darrow there. And I thought, speaking about separation of church and state, there's a William James Bryan on court property. There's the courthouse, and there's the sculpture.
So that
and it was a religious sculpture, as you know, and it was put there by William James Bryan College, which happened after the trial, and they were there, they were making a religious statement. What you didn't know, I mean, you made the sculpture possible. The two of you, your organization, the people who are part of it. If it wasn't for Freedom from Religion Foundation, there would not be a Clarence Darrow sculpture there. And besides that, there was a lot of publicity that happened around it, which we didn't know was going to happen, but I had a friend from Australia who said to me, oh, I saw it in the newspaper here. So it went beyond. And we had the New York Times, of course. People wrote about it all over the country.
Because the Scopes trial was such a big famous
And
thing.
so now it's there. I know I went down there to scope it out before.
Scope it
yes. And I was sitting in my car, and I've told the story, and I saw a teacher bring a class there, as they often did, and to show them, and I could see her talking to them about William James Bryan, and they had gone in, I guess, already and seen, you can see the courtroom is still the same, and they were leaving. And I jumped out of the car and I ran across the yard, and I said, wait, you don't know anything about Clarence Darrow. There's another part to this. And the teacher seemed a little startled. She said, well, tell us about it. I said, I'm a sculptor and I'm going to be creating Clarence Darrow. So I told her about Clarence Darrow. I told the whole class. She had me tell the whole class, because otherwise they just got one story about William James Bryan. And then she thanked me and they left. And I thought to myself, I can't spend the rest of my life sitting in my car. And every time some teacher comes to the class, I'm going to jump out and run over.
You get arrested.
Yes, at least. And so a sculpture could do that for me, because it'll be there all the time for all of us. And it'll speak for us. It's not mute.
So let's talk about Thomas Paine.
Yes.
Not only are you working on this memorial that Representative Jamie Raskin is trying to get through Congress so we can get a monument to Thomas Paine finally in Washington, D.C. But for people who aren't that aware of how important he was to the United States and his views, I know you've done a lot of research.
I have.
Tell us more. What
But
does
for me, is that common sense to begin with, and then the age of reason, we can go to that, and the criticism of religion. That's a kind of extension. But his common sense, we just had 4 years of this awful buffoon as president, who was a dangerous buffoon with Trump. And I really felt it during this presidency that where's the common sense anymore in this insanity in the White House? And now we see so many politicians and the QAnon and all this craziness. I felt we need common sense in government, and we need religion out of government, and we need common sense in government.
So let's look at this pièce.
Well, this is still being worked on. It's a work in progress. So I still have a lot of work to do on the face. I probably will cut the head off and bring it down here so I can work on it easier and then put it back up.
Really?
Yeah, it's just
You
easier.
had your own
I'm my own,
statue.
yes. Better me than someone else.
So this is Thomas Paine, of course.
Yes. And, you know, it's a problem when you're dealing with people in the past like that. There aren't photos, and of course, because it was too soon. There's some paintings, and you're reliant somewhat on how good the painters were, and I don't think any first-rate painter painted him. So I have to be careful and not trust him completely. But I tried to make this general enough so that it would fit in indoors or outdoors, and it had him, you know, he's moving forward, and he's looking sort of into the future, and because he's thinking about his writings about the country that he's going to help create and that he's envisioning. I think he was only here a couple of years before we go to Common Sense.
In Philadelphia? You mean?
Yes,
Or-
and he came in, you know, because Ben Franklin said to him when he met him in England, why don't you go to
The colonies.
overseas to the colonies and try your luck there. He wasn't doing well in England. And he really looked up to Franklin because Franklin was an Enlightenment figure, and Paine was part of that and knew many of the people in England in the Enlightenment, that coffee house group that drank coffee other than beer so they could be a little sharper and foment revolution.
What is going to be on this paper that
I'm not
Paine
sure. I
is
was
holding?
thinking we could talk about that. I kind of thought in a more probably common sense is the most, because common sense applies to everything. Even his writing on that was critical of religion is common sense.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's an extension of that, and I think it's more palatable to more people, to a larger audience, and
Yeah.
And
as sugar helps the medicine go down.
where is this destined to go, Zenos?
Well, we're hoping that this will go. This is going to go, as you know, Jamie Raskin and you and others are behind having this in Washington D.C. because Washington needs common sense and needs reason
It
and
sure
science. It's been under siege, and he helped us once. Maybe he can help us again with the pen.
And that was a really entertaining and fun interview with the sculptor Zenos Frudakis. Thank you, Zenos.
And thank you for watching Freethought Matters.
Because free thought matters.
Hi, I'm Steve Pinker. In my book, Enlightenment Now, I show that the world has become a better place as reason has been overcoming superstition and tribalism. But the values of the Enlightenment are under attack. That's why I'm a proud member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest association of free thinkers working to keep state and church separate. Please join me in supporting the Freedom from Religion Foundation to ensure that our government is driven not by religion, but by reason.